Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So, thanks again for joining the session today. Let's give a couple of more minutes for other folks to join and then we'll start. All right, guys, welcome again. Good morning. It's a rainy morning here in India, in the part of India where I live. So, people who are around, they must be enjoying it. So, it's a lovely rainy morning. Uh, I could see people still joining in, so we'll let them join us. But let's start this, or else we'll be late to wrap it up. Quick check. You can see my screen and you can hear me loud and clear. Just raise your hands, a couple of hands, and I'll be okay. Yes, thank you. I see a lot of hands, so thank you very much for confirmation. And on my screen, this is session 4, 19th of July. Topics that we plan to cover today. I've got a long list, but one of them is a small project that will create based on the knowledge we have gained so far. There'll be certain components involved, a set of them, which are listed in the bottom of my screen in a box called components. But new thing that we'll learn today is UI policies and client scripts. These two components are very widely used components in ServiceNow. You'll see a lot of people using them on forms to do certain things. What those things are, we'll talk about them, but these are one of the widely used components. There are some other components which are frequently used, but UI policies and client scripts are very basic. They are fundamental blocks in ServiceNow when you talk about customizing ServiceNow. Right. So let me go and share my screen, my instance rather. So where is the share? Right. Okay. I hope you can see my screen. This is my personal instance yet, and it's still alive. So first is UI policy. Okay. Let's go and talk about UI policies first. So I have just typed UI policy, not completely though, and still I can see it has filtered some application and modules for that keyword. As usual, I'll go uh, at the bottom of the list, because that's where mostly you see modules which are specific to administrators. You still see some catalog UI policies and debug UI policies and mobile UI policies here and there, but we want to focus on just UI policies. So I'll go to system UI and UI policies. That's what I'm going to open. Okay, and there are set of UI policies already in system. If you see, there are 1668 UI policies in system already. And let's open just one of them to try to understand what it is. What do we need to do to configure the UI policy, and then we'll go and configure one as a part of our project. Let this open. This is slow. Personal instances are sometimes slow. Okay, good that this thing came up. You see at the top, running transaction, this one. So in ServiceNow, when a UI transaction, so when I say UI transaction, that means when you do something from the user interface. From here, if you click something, if you open something, you update or delete, these are UI transaction, user interface transaction. So when user is interacting with the interface, they do some transactions. They search, they insert, they delete, they update, they go here and there. So anyway, when your user interacts with the system, it generates a new UI transaction. So when they actually perform something for some operation, sometimes they take time. These transactions take time, and that's where you see at the top of your platform somewhere here, where it says running transaction, and then it shows you a counter which shows how many seconds the transaction have been running. If something is very slow, it's going to run for a long time. You can configure certain things around transaction. That's generally I would say advanced administration, where we define transaction quota rules. QUOTA, transaction quota rules. I'm just deviating a little bit from the topic, but I want to show you this since we got that on screen. So this is where you go and configure transaction quota rule, and these are certain things which are there out of the box. You can configure few more, but this is not something you do every day. It's more of a decision that you take based on some observation, some platform performance observation, interaction with service. Now, of course, so if you see something usually running slow, you you contact service. Now you tell them your problem and then discuss with them what is causing it. Sometimes they recommend changing transaction quotas. So for example, I'll take which example, which one should I pick up, because these I want to pick up. Okay, let's go and pick the first one anyways. So fixed script processor. So fixed script in ServiceNow is a way for you to store your scripts in system and run them occasionally, one time on a scheduled basis, after upgrade, before upgrade, whatever you like. You just want to store those scripts somewhere in system, and you want to run them on demand or on a scheduled basis. Then fixed script is a module where you go and do that. We'll talk about it in some other session, but this quota rule is kind of putting a limit on how long a fixed script can run. So you see maximum duration is 14,400, and that's in seconds. So once you run a fixed script, it goes beyond this threshold, system will start showing that timer. That's how they put quota rules around transactions. So running a fixed script is a specific type of transaction, and not users can do it, but it's admin transaction. But yes, yet it's a transaction, and you want to put a limit to it. If you don't have you know bounds around your transactions, your system might uh, go in a situation where the overall performance of the platform will go down, because of course at the bottom of everything there are few technical components involved. There are few platform level components involved which are interacting with servers, and servers have got resource limitation. So when you run something indefinitely, those resources kind of gets locked, and then you start falling short of them, and then other people using the platform starts realizing the impact. So there's a lot of collateral damage that happens when you run things which are time and resource consuming. So that's where quota rules comes into play. All right, let's go back to UI policy. So I'll open this UI policies module. Let's open the first UI policy, as I said. And this time, if you noticed, this form loaded uh, relatively faster than before. And the reason is system stores the recently retrieved data from server in cache, not the browser cache, but in ServiceNow there's a server cache as well. So they store it there, and any subsequent request for the same you know resource. I mean, everything is a resource here. This table, this form module, technically they are resources, but if I'm going to access this UI policy again and again, it's going to store it somewhere in the cache, so that next time I load it, it's faster from, faster than before, because it's going to pull up from the cache, not from the database itself. So it's just system's smart way to make itself faster. So that's why it loaded faster than before. So now we see the UI policy form. Here's a table name. So first thing is, when you configure the UI policy, you have to tell system against which table you want to configure the UI policy. You have to tell that, okay, when someone opens a record on a form from this table, that is when the UI policy should run. All right. So first thing is the table. Then you have to give a short description. It could be anything of your choice. It could be A, B, C, X, Y, Z. It's good to give some logical, self-explanatory names. Writing ABC doesn't make sense, but someone wrote always hide read only related list field. Okay, they chose to give a very self-explanatory short description. That's a good idea. So always try to give a good uh, self-explanatory short description, not too long, not too short, but should be able to kind of give you a hint of what this UI policy is about. Active flag is checked by default. You can uncheck it. What that means is if it is unchecked, this UI policy is as good as it doesn't exist. It's not going to come into play. It's not going to run. Whenever it is supposed to run, it's not going to run. So your components have to be active. So they are mostly active by default, with exception to few components, which when are created are inactive by default. Example, very rare, I mean, example could be when there's a data archiving functionality in ServiceNow. Okay, my apologies, I'm kind of person who gets deviated sometimes because I want to take some examples to explain things. So data archiving is a module in ServiceNow. It's an application uh, which lets you archive data based on your criteria. So if I want to archive, say for example, incidents. So incidents are the records which are very frequently created in any system like this. So they are huge in numbers, and as table grow, performance of queries on that table are bound to deteriorate, because again we have limited resources, technical and some otherwise. So we have to optimize our platform for efficiency. So when tables grow in size, we have to archive some data out of them. Archive doesn't mean delete. Okay, archive means uh, based on certain criteria, take out the subset of data from the main table and put it somewhere else in a secondary table, link them. Okay, link, you can still link them so that you can retrieve the data at any point in time later on. But the primary queries of insert, update and delete and everything that runs from the screen, from the UI transaction, from a user interface, they only query a subset of that which is left. So generally I've seen people archiving incident records based on criteria like incidents that have been closed a year ago. Something that somebody reported and it got closed a year ago, and there's been no update on that whatsoever from the last 1 year. There are very slim chances anybody is going to retrieve it. So based on that criteria, you can archive incident records, and that will make your queries on incident much faster. Okay, so when you create an archiving rule, those are inactive by default. So the whole agenda of telling archiving rule was situations where active flag is set to false by default, right? But it's good, at least we got to know one more component today. So data archiving is a module, is an application which is available in ServiceNow. It comes under advanced administration. Not many people perform archiving. This I'm when they do it, they're a little skeptical about it. They think, I don't know if I'll lose my data or not. Extension to archiving, of course, is purging also. So you can define, if something stayed in an archive table for 2 years, just get rid of it, delete it. So your organization policy could say, we retain your incidents for 1 year. Uh, After it gets closed and they are archived, still reportable, but after next 2 years, we just get rid of them, we delete them. So your data retention policy of an organization could determine for how long you want the data to be in the system. Indefinite retention is something I mean, it's debatable. I mean, some people, some organizations would like to have it. For example, healthcare organizations, they want to retain old data for many reasons. To study uh, the trend of disease in a particular patient, how it runs in their family, etc. For reference at some point in time in future. But these are exceptional cases. Commercial industries. Banking and financial industries, they don't want to have data forever. Even in your banking stuff, in your when you do online banking, you might have noticed they say only 3 months of account statement is available. The reason is they're archiving data. They're putting it in an offline system. Still, you can request it, and statements older than 3 months. What that happens is that query goes to an alternate system, which is just about keeping data. They might be their warehouse of data from where they generate those reports offline and send it to you. though automatically, but that's a different data from the main online banking system. So there are people who do that, there are people who don't want to do it, and they have their own reasons not to do that. Anyway, so you have a short description, you have active flag, you have table name, order. You'll see this field on many of the forms when you create components, and it has got a numerical value. It could be anything, any numeric value you want. But the thing is, if you have more than one such component, in our case UI policy, so if I have more than one UI policy on the same table, they will run in a given order from lowest to highest. So the lowest order UI components will run first, UI policies will run first, followed by UI policies with a higher order. So order does play an important role. People tend to ignore it, but uh, sometimes your system misbehaves and you don't understand why. And I've seen order playing a vital role, because the higher order policy is probably doing something which is overriding what the lower order policy did, and you never realized how important the orders are, and then you see, okay, system is not really behaving the way I expect, and just because you have not given the order correctly. So be very careful with the order. It's just something, small thing which gets ignored most of the times. People just leave it with the default one or two or whatever it is. If you have more than one UI policies, so I mean, order, as I said, is a field which you'll find in most of the components, client scripts or UI policies, or the other components also in ServiceNow. If you have more than one UI policy, in our case with the same order, they'll run in any random fashion system deems fit. If I've got three UI policies on this table with order one, they might run in any given order whenever they are executed. So there's no predefined order in that case. It's good to have orders on your UI policies. When to apply is the condition when you want this UI policy to run. So they have given sys ID is not empty. Maybe they just want to run it when a sys ID gets allocated onto a record in this table, and then that's where they'd say, okay, now we want to run this. On load, do you want to run this UI policy when the form loads or not? Okay. Reverse if false. It's an important flag, very important flag. Again, something which makes your system misbehave and people don't realize why. Reverse if false means if your conditions are not getting satisfied on the current situation, on the current record which is being displayed on the form, and the UI policy runs and the condition doesn't match, that means you want to reverse what you did when it was true. So when your situation was true, you probably did something. What you did is determined here, will come to that. But if the condition doesn't match, I want to revert it. Okay, I don't want that thing to stay there, and that's where you check this box. I'll explain it with an example. Other two flags, very, I mean, you can go and read about them, but in trust of time, I'll not go to all of them. I'm just covering important ones here. Okay, the ones which are practically used and used most of the times. Once you create a UI policy and save it, you start seeing these tabs at the bottom, or a related list, as we call them, on the bottom. And this determines what you want to do when the when the UI policies condition is true. It matches the record which is getting displayed. What we can do here is, on the form we have got so many fields. The form which is rendering that record, which is showing that record, it has got number of fields. You can do certain things with those fields. You want to make some of them mandatory, you can do that. You can leave them alone if you don't want to do it. You can hide them or show them. You can make them read only, or you can make them writable. So you can control three aspects of fields on the form with the UI policy, and those are making them mandatory optional, making them visible invisible, making them read only editable. So you can go and click new, choose a field which you want to control when the UI condition policy run and the condition matches, and you might want to show them or hide them. Sometimes there are fields which are dependent upon each other. I'll give an example of some drop down, some random drop down. Imagine in an application where there are certain choices and then there's an others option. The moment you select others, a free text box starts appearing, and a new field starts appearing which lets you type whatever you think your choice is, because it was not there in the list. That is where you can use a UI policy to show hide that text box. So your UI policy might say, okay, when my drop down value is this, show this field, and then reverse if false. If that value is not that, I don't want to show it, hide it. Okay, so that's a very classic example of where you can use a UI policy. Uh, s- so that's about field. You can also hide and show your related lists at the bottom using a UI policy. If you think your condition doesn't satisfy and you don't want to show a particular related list on the form, you can hide it. So for related list, you can only control the visibility factor, but for other fields, you can control mandatory, visible, and read only aspect of the field. Okay. Advanced UI policies, if you want to run scripts based on a UI policy, you can still do that. Go to script option, run scripts, and write your scripts here. 1 and 2. If your UI policy condition matches, run this. If it doesn't matches, run that. You can write scripts here. Since we're on the scripting part, I would like to mention that in ServiceNow, the scripting syntax that is used is of ECMA scripts, which is equivalent to using a JavaScript or a C++. So the syntax of those languages are used. Not very complex scripts are written in ServiceNow. They're pretty much simple, and I've seen people reusing a lot of the script by referencing old scripts, or they make their notes of frequently used scripts. So people generally use scripts when it is more of a server side transaction, more of a server side interaction. So you want to pull data from the table, you want to update, you want to insert, you want to query. People use scripts. They are generally in UI policies. I have seen their requirement getting satisfied from configuration aspect only by having some UI policy actions like this. Scripts, you can, I mean, people do write, but there are, I mean, not, I would say only 30 or 35% of the times. Majority is people configuring UI policy actions. Another important thing here is run scripts in UI type. Okay, if I pull that down, it says desktop, it says mobile oblique service portal, and then there's an all option. Uh, so ServiceNow has got a desktop version, which we are looking at right now. When I open it in a desktop, okay, desktop, laptop, both. Otherwise, you have got a mobile application also, which was called Classic, mobile app. Nowadays ServiceNow has come out with more smart apps, which are more native apps. As such, the web classic app of ServiceNow was just a web UI view of their instance. It wasn't a true mobile application which you can download from Play Store and stuff. It was just that when you tried to open your instance from a mobile browser, it used to realize that you're trying to open it from a mobile or the tablet, and then it used to show you a web UI of the instance, and that was configurable from some applications and modules here. But nowadays they have come out with smart native apps, apps you can download from App Store, Play Store, and they are configurable all together using a different configuration studio. It's called there's a studio here, and inside that you have got a mobile application which you can configure. So it has its own set of configuration components. But in old days, when we used to have classic app, I would say 2 years ago, not that old, we used to use classic apps, and then we used to have UI policies and client scripts made compatible for mobile, and that's how we used to use them. But now those policies are configurable from within the native app mobile studio. So that's a different ball game altogether. But that's what it is. Service portal is important. As I said, ServiceNow has got different interfaces, different look and feel for people who are logging in. So if I'm an admin, I see this. If I'm somebody who is just a person who has no roles, I have a user account in system, but there are no roles aligned to me. That means I'm an end user. I'm somebody who's just going to request something, or I'm going to complain about something, log an incident or log a request. That's all I'm going to do about it. So I'm not a resolver, I'm not a fulfiller, I'm not a person from service desk, I'm not somebody who's going to solve any problem. I'm just here because I'm using some services offered by a vendor who has got ServiceNow, and they have given me access to their ServiceNow instance to log incidents and requests. So if I'm an end user, when I log in, I see service portal, which is more of a website kind of a thing. I'll open that and show it to you real quick today. So this is oh, I don't know if it's active here. Oh, sorry, it's just SP. Okay. Now look at this. This is like a website. Okay. This is not like my console. Mine is like it does look like something which is meant for people who are administrators. This is something which is like more like a website, website of your telecom provider, a website of your of any of the e-commerce site, where you can go search and request something, knowledge based community, get help and stuff. So this is called service portal, and it's completely configurable. This is just one out of the box layout. You can create as many layouts you want, add, remove components, create custom components. You've got a cart and all that stuff. So this is for people who actually are consuming services offered by the vendor, who's managing those services using ServiceNow, and they have exposed ServiceNow to their end users through a portal, because this is how people understand. They understand, okay, I can go to vodafone.com or airtel.in, and they get this flashy site and they want to chat, they want to log something or request something. So this is service portal. So scripts which I want to run, UI policies which I want to run on service portal, I choose this option, because service portal has a different framework in the background. It uses a different set of technology called Angular and other stuff in the background. So we have to make certain things exclusive here, saying, okay, I want this to run on service portal. I choose that option. And if I think it's going to run on both, I'll choose all. Safest bet is to choose all. I prefer choosing all. Why not? I mean, if conditions are matching, why not run it on service portal, and why not run it on desktop? Why not run it on mobile classic app? Why not? So I choose all. That's my take. It might be having some overhead somewhere, I don't know, because choosing it all means it's a blanket statement, which and the more specific you make them, uh, they only come into play when the situation applies. So maybe if I make it just for desktop, that means when a record from this table on which I'm defining my UI policy, okay, when record from this table is rendered somehow in any manner on this service portal, this will not run because it's just meant for desktop, and maybe I don't want to run it. So it's not even going to consider it. That means there will be slight performance improvement in terms of number of scripts it has to run to render the page to show that record in the portal. So of course there'll be certain performance implications. You can weigh them and see whether which way you want to go. I prefer doing all. I don't know. Sometimes you can make out things that you only want to run in service portal, make them exclusive. And desktop is default. Okay. So that was UI policies. Okay. Important things: when to run it, on which table you want to run it, do you want to run it on load, do you want to run it when the conditions are not met anymore, what do you want to do, do you want to hide show fields or make them visible, invisible, read only optional, do you want to hide show some related list, do you want to run scripts. So all that stuff is here. So that's all about UI policies. They control certain aspects of fields and related list on forms on the user interface. That's all they are, UI policies. Okay, we'll create some UI policies as a part of our small project, but let's quickly move on to client scripts now. Okay, client scripts. By the way, if you want to configure, say for example, I'll open incident form. Okay, so if I type incident and I go and click create new incident, I see this form. I'm an admin, that's why I'm getting this view. When an end user wants to log an incident, they'll do it from portal, service portal, and it's not about requesting something. Let's go inside and see if they have an option to report about a problem. Okay, can we help you? Yes, I have a problem. Can you help me? And what is that? Is there something called? There used to be an option here called something broken. Okay, okay, I've got to create incident now. You see this tile? I've got an incident. I click on that, and let's see what kind of a view I get. As an admin, I got that, that one, complex one with more fields. But look at what end user has got. A very elegant form with very less fields. So I need an assistance. I've got a problem. I, I, I went to my vendor's website and I go to this create incident, and I say, okay, it's a very high thing, high priority, and my data is not working. That's all. Okay. And look at this ServiceNow smart way of recommending certain things based on what you have typed here. Do you really mean these? Can I these store and all that stuff? But no, it doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm going to just submit it. I just want to log an incident. Okay, I've got a problem. You got to solve it. And that's it. It created an incident for me. Here's the number, and somebody is going to work on it. They'll contact me, they'll update the ticket, I'll get emails, I'll be notified and stuff. Okay, so this is one way of how people reach out to service providers to tell there's a problem. They go to their portals for which they already have a URL and credentials, and they log incidents. They log requests also if they want to request for something. In our case of telecom, we said we wanted to increase our data capacity. Maybe we want to request a 4G SIM. Maybe I want to request one more connection. So those are requests. Services which you don't have but you want to avail. Incidents are something which a service you are already using, but then just stopped working for some reason, or the quality degraded. You know, Both of them are incident. Either it stops working, service is 100% unusable, or quality is degraded. Both are incidents. So I may choose to log an incident, I may choose to log a request. Portals are one way of users to reach out to vendors to tell such things. Alternatively, vendors, they provide email addresses, for their people, for customers to reach out to them. They can drop an email at a specific email ID, and that will get recorded as a ticket automatically, and your service desk or other teams will pick them up, work on them, contact the customer and stuff. They can call on toll-free numbers. Customers can call on toll-free numbers, and service desk picks up, and they create incidents on the user's behalf. So when a service desk creates an incident on the user's behalf, they don't use portal. They either use this, or there's a service desk application. They use this maybe. Okay, from here they go and click new. They can use this, and then there's one more. I don't know it's there or not, but there's a module. I think we have to exclusively enable it. We'll go and see that at some point. It's called new call, NEWCALL, and that lets service desk open a different form. And sometimes people don't know whether it's an issue or a request. They don't know. The person who's calling doesn't know, because first thing when they contact a service now is that they tell them, okay, you know what, my name is this and this is my number. And that's where service desk, they put in their number somewhere and they get all the details, and then they greet the person and ask them about what is that they want them to do for them. So customers might say, okay, you know what, I want a 4G SIM. Can you just uh, uh, record it somewhere and tell me when will I get it? So till the time customer says that, service desk doesn't know whether they should be opening a request form or the incident form. They don't know. Now, where will they note all the information, the number, the name, and stuff? So the new call is a form which lets you enter all those information, and then at some point decide whether you want to take an incident route or you want to take a request route. So that's something which, you know, service desk uses a lot. If they don't have it, maybe they use just incidents. But new call is an additional feature which I've seen. Maybe we have to activate it from plugins. In ServiceNow we have got a plugins section, okay, and that lets you enable additional features in ServiceNow. A lot of them are there out of the box, but then there are additional features you can activate. Some of them are paid. Be careful, some of them are paid. You can purchase some extra plugins from store. There's a website called store.servicenow.com. Okay, store.servicenow.com, and that is where, you know, people like us create additional plugins, components, uh, attach a price and license mechanism to it, and host it here. Of course, there's a process that you need to follow, but you can have your applications and plugins developed and you can sell them here. There are a lot of plugins available. You can, some of them are free, some of them are licensed, one-time cost, recurring cost, whatever. You can download them, have it in your system, use it, pay for them. You know, don't reinvent the wheel. If somebody has developed it, it's better to use their knowledge. They're experts and in that area, maybe that's why they have developed a plugin. What I was saying is, probably you can go here and let's see if there's a new call here. I don't know. No, I'll come back to later how that comes into action. But anyways, you can go and activate additional plugins from plugins module. Another bonus topic we covered while we were discussing portals and incidents. And so we are going a lot, you know, here and there, just because it all makes sense as we are discussing all this. uh, okay, I wanted to show you the client script. So we went on to the incident form, and from there I started explaining portal and the other areas from where the incident can be logged. And the last thing, you know, last way of probably person reaching out to service desk could be chat. Okay, sometimes you go to their website and you chat, you do a live chat, and you tell, you know, first thing that usually these days happens is that the virtual assistants. Okay, there's an agent, a virtual agent that starts interacting with you, and based on what you type, it tries to, you know, recommend some options, some solutions. So these agents are virtual agents. They are backed up by machine learning and agent intelligence. So, you know, these are automatic systems which kind of tries to deviate traffic and not let everything go to the service desk, because service desk is a managed, a human managed service, and when somebody like that comes into play, there's a cost involved. And these agents are very common these days, because sometimes they can solve at least some amount of problems which people are reporting or requesting for. So it's good to use them so that you can reduce some traffic to your service desk. So chat is another way customers use to reach out to their vendors. So in ServiceNow, you have got a portal, you have got chat option, you have got toll-free numbers. Of course, toll-free numbers are not hosted by ServiceNow, but you can, as a part of portal configuration, maybe you can put a toll-free number here. And then, of course, emails, right? Back to incident form and client scripts. Okay, and how do we configure the client script? There are two options. Either I can go here, client scripts, system definition client scripts, go here, and from here I can create a new client script. Let's open an existing client script and see what are its components, what are the attributes of the client script. Again, a known message at the top which tells me this client script belongs to some application, and but I'm in global application right now. So it's telling me, it's warning me you are trying to, probably your next thing you would like to do is edit it, but be aware it's an application specific client script. It's not something global. So it's your choice. You want to edit it, click here, and it's going to temporarily switch me to this application. Let me make changes and save it. Or alternatively, you can switch your application from here. So for example, I'll show you integration commons for CMDB. That's an application. Okay, I'll select that application from here, and the form will reload. And this time I should not see that box. There's no such box here now, and the form is open for editing. Okay. So now let's talk about the fields which are here. What is required to configure the client script? Of course, a name like UI policy. It's best to give a self-explanatory name telling people, or admins, not people. Not everybody will access them. Admins like us, or developers like us, to tell them what the client script is about. What is it about to do? So this one says set fields read only, and you might say, okay, I could have used a UI policy. Why to make the field read only? Why using a client script? Depends on your situation, on your case. Look at this script. You know, they are doing something more than just disabling one field. They're running a loop. They're running a for loop, that will go into a cycle of doing things uh, again and again to a finite limit defined here. So that's not something you can do using a UI policy. So they've chosen to use a client script. So again, depends what do you want to do, and then you select which component are you going to use. Are you going to use a UI policy? Are you going to use client script? Because even from client script you can hide show fields, you can make them visible, invisible, you can make them read only optional, editable, sorry. So you can do all that from both of them, but then your situation decides which way you will take. So name the table on which you want to run client script, similar to UI policies. The type, same like UI policies. Active flag, same as UI policies. And then this is important. What type of client script is this? So you have got four choices here. On load, which is highlighted, then you have got on the top on cell edit, you have got on change, and then you have got one at the bottom called on submit. On load client scripts means when a record will be shown on a form. When I say, for example, I have a client script on incident form, incident table, and it's marked as on load. What that means is when I'm going to open any incident on a form. So from a list, I click on an incident number, which opens that incident on a form. That is when I want to run it, when the form is loading. Okay. So when the form loads, I want to run this client script, not the list load. Okay. There's nothing called list load. List, they do load, but these client scripts will not run on those lists. Okay. When they load, it's about form. So when the form loads, you want to run this. The easiest one, the next one is on submit, when someone updates or saves a record. So if I'm saving it or I'm updating it on this form, any client scripts which are marked as on submit for this table in which client scripts are getting stored will run. So in our case, if for example, I have an incident client script on incident table marked for on submit. So when I am going to save or update an incident from that form, that client script will run. Again, you can have more than one client scripts. It's not that you can have only one load and one on submit. You can have thousands of unload, thousands of on submit. But be very careful again. There are too many scripts, of course, too much of processing for the platform to do. That means the overall response time of the platform in those cases might be longer than expected. So be very careful. What do you want to do? You shouldn't be doing everything. You shouldn't be saying no to everything either. So be very, use your knowledge, use and take decisions wisely, and advise your customers what is best for the platform and what is the best route to fulfill their requirement. Customers might say, just do it for me. Then you have to choose the right way of doing it, maybe giving them an alternate way to do it, maybe choosing an optimal way to do it. Okay, so on submit, client script. On change means, if you have noticed, the moment I switched, see, nothing is here, okay? On load, on submit, nothing is here. In between type and description, there's nothing. But the moment I select on change, there's additional field that appears now. What is that? Let's open it. There's some values here. What these are? These are the fields of the table I've chosen here. So if I say, example, category. So what that means is when someone changes the value of category field on form, that is when I want to run this script. On change of a field value, that is when you want to run it. Okay. And then the last one, on cell edit, and then the field is still there. That means when I am double clicking on a cell in a list view of this table and trying to edit that cell value, that is when I want the client script to run. So you cannot have onload of lists client script, but still you can have client scripts running when a value in the cell is edited. So three types are meant for forms, that is on change, on load, on submit. And one type is meant for list, which runs when you edit a particular cell in that column on the list view. So when somebody tries to change the category from the list of this table records by double clicking it, this client script will run. And here's where you write client scripts. So don't be confused about the scripting. Don't try to understand what it is trying to do. We'll learn them slowly as we go along, and we create our own client scripts. Okay. As I said, mostly I've seen people referencing old scripts and seeing what code is there and then copy pasting it using Google to figure out their client script. But it is best if you have got good knowledge of JavaScript, because then it makes things easier. But do remember one thing, I've seen the same code components getting used, same, like for loops. For loops will, the syntax of the for loop is like this. For ages, it's like this. It's not going to change, right? So once you write a for loop, the logic inside a for loop could be different, but the syntax for loop doesn't change. For loop, has got a counter which says, okay, start from 0 and go till its value is equivalent or less to this or greater than that, whatever, and increment the counter by 1, and then run this code every time you iterate the for loop. So for loops have been like this forever. So for loop will not change, if conditions will not change, if our logical way of comparing two things in a code. So once you write a for loop, if thing and while loops and some other statements, they're fixed in, they are 20, 20, 30 maybe, but they're fixed. Then inside them, the logic kind of, is written based on what you want to do. But in general, 60% of the code is just the same, right? It's not very complex. So people get scared, oh, this now it's about coding, I have never done that and not my cup of tea. Don't worry. There's nothing very technical about these things. You learn them over a period of time. But yeah, it's good to practice, read, and refer these things as you go along. It helps. Okay, so we are done with UI policies. We are done with client scripts. My recommendation for you is to go on Docs site, okay, DOCS, docs.servicenow.com, and read about these components. So if I just put UI policy here, you see UI policies. No, not service catalog UI policy, maybe just the UI policies. No, I'll just press enter here. UI policy. The first one, UI policies. So this is what I want you to read. It's not anything more than what we discussed, but definitely it's going to cover any gaps which might be there when I was talking about it, or things which I didn't explain. Certain things like global, I didn't talk much about it. You can go and read about it, and there's an example at the bottom also which can help. So I recommend go and read these things. So Similar to UI policies, you can read about client scripts, write client scripts in Presenter. And the first one, always choose the first one. That's a, these are basic components. So they're at the very top. There's a video also around getting started with client scripts. You can refer that also. And each and every field is explained in detail about, when you configure a client script, what are those fields. So different types: on load, on submit, on change, you know, on cell edit. So everything is explained here. You can refer these articles in docs. It's good reference. As I said, docs is the authentic source of all the components which we configure or create in ServiceNow. It's owned by ServiceNow themselves, so they have the best knowledge of these components, and the way they explain is very good. You can always export these. I don't know why, but if you like, you can export them to PDFs and read offline, print them. I don't know, it's environment friendly or not. Anyways, quickly let's jump on to the list. The sorry, here. So we discussed UI policies and client scripts. Let's jump into. I know we are running over time, but let's see how much of this can be done. Oh, let me know, guys, if you want to do it the next weekend. Just raise your hands. Tell me, you want to do it now, you want to cover it in the next session. Just raise as many hands you want, and then I'll come to know you want to do it now or maybe next weekend, because we are over time today. I can cover today, I can cover next weekend also. If you raise hands, that means you want it to be done today. If you don't, that means next weekend. I've got only 4 hands so far. Okay, a lot of people are saying now in chat. Or some people are saying next session, next session. I don't know which. Okay, next, now, next. Lot of hands there. Okay, let me do this. Okay, let's start this and we'll stop midway. Okay, we'll not complete it today. We'll just talk about the theme. Okay, I'll talk about the theme which I have in mind, and then we'll implement that theme maybe next weekend. Okay. So the theme is I want to create a small application in ServiceNow which I want my employees to use to manage their time. So timesheets, we all know, right? We all fill in timesheets at the end of our working days. Every organization has got a different platform for that. Some uses SAP, some uses some exclusive HR management tools to record times. So I just want a small app in ServiceNow because I don't want to spend a lot on those applications. So maybe I have ServiceNow and I want to use it for this purpose. Okay, this is a little, beyond just ITSM. Okay, one person commented on my post in LinkedIn saying, you know what, ServiceNow, I don't look at it ServiceNow as an ITSM platform. I look at it as a automation platform. It has got workflows, flows, and you can literally automate anything. And I do agree with that. I mean, the gentleman was very right in saying it's not just ITSM. So when ServiceNow started, they started as a content management system back in 2006 or 7. They said it's like CMS. You know, you have building blocks. You can create forms. You can have tables. You can have fields. You can have policies. You can have workflows behind them. Use them the way you like. You know, bring them together and create an application of your need, of your choice. That was very well said. But then over a period of time, they themselves chose ITSM as a theme on which they wanted to configure the platform, and they configured it to have out of the box modules like incident, request, change, problem, knowledge, and a lot of them. And they really kind of support a lot on these modules, ITSM modules. So this thing kind of evolved over time as a ITSM platform, ITSM suite. But in reality, it is of course a content management. You still go and create any application of your choice, because it doesn't say you can't have these fields. You can decide what tables you want to have. You can make a whole website out of this tool. You can have a dynamic website out of ServiceNow. I can design a complete tool for schools to manage, attendance of the kids, to managing exams, results, and timetables for teachers, and notes for PTMs and everything. You can have the complete application within ServiceNow. You can have a complete e-commerce website designed in ServiceNow. You can all do all that, right? But they evolved over time themselves as an ITSM platform, and that's what they support a lot. So, again, back to our project, it's not ITSM implementation, as some of aspect of it. It's just me saying, okay, I want this to use this tool to let my employees record time. So what I want to do is have a form on which I can choose my name. Maybe my name should get auto populated, right? Because I'm logged in and I want to submit time for myself. Nobody else should be able to put time on my behalf. So, name user, that's a first field. If you see, they can choose their name, or that should get auto populated. My start date and time, end date, time, they should also get populated based on today. And then hours of effort I have invested today in my work, put that, and what did I actually do. Whether I was in a meeting, or I was creating a project, or I was on leave, whatever. You put your activity there and save it. That's my one record. I should be able to save as many records I want. I should be able to report on them and all that stuff. So I want to have that small application. How will we achieve it is, we'll create a table to have those fields. We'll design a form and decide upon the list layout. We'll create an application and a module to which person can navigate on the left hand side, and go and see that list, or put in an entry there. We want to control certain aspects, certain fields we want to make read only. We want to pre-populate them. We want to have some client scripts for validation. Nobody should be able to submit if activity is blank or effort is blank. So we can do all that. Or maybe I can create a group. I put some users inside that, and those users are the ones who can use this module, maybe. So some restrictions there. So my team is kind of using all the components we have learned or discussed so far, like form layouts, list layouts, tables, dictionaries, application modules, roles, groups, client scripts, UI pulses, put them all together to a real-time situation and use it. Okay, that's what the intent is. Maybe in interest of time and based on what everyone is saying, we'll talk about it more in the next session. But you know what, maybe next session will be little let's do it because it's needed. I want to wrap it up in no more than 8 sessions. I thought, I'll cover just basics, but I believe we are going a little beyond basics here, but that's okay. I think that's the best thing we can do here. So the next session will be, mark your calendars for at least an hour and a half. Okay. If not an hour, because it's not really getting done from my experience in 45 to 50 minutes. I've seen that doesn't happen, never happened in the last 3 sessions either. So mark your calendars for an hour and a half for next weekend, and we'll have this because we will have to keep progressing also. So I'll be having some new topics also to discuss, and at the same time we'll have to create this project also. So please have your calendars marked, book hour and a half for yourself. It is important if you're interested to follow all these sessions. I'm putting recordings so that people can refer them later on, but it's best to have be there on the live session, because then sometimes it helps. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. People are convinced, they're okay to have it on the next weekend. I'll quickly go through the chat to see if there are any questions. Okay, what is a UI policy by definition? Why do we need to worry about it? UI policy by definition are the way for you to control visibility, read-only aspect, and mandatory aspect of a field on form based on certain condition. Very pure, definition of what UI policy is. There are situations where we would like to make certain fields on form read-only. You don't want people to change them. So use UI policies there. Sometimes you want to make a field mandatory and optional based on certain conditions. You can use UI policy there. So that's what UI policy is for. And yes, they are widely used. They are very widely used. Does UI policy always run client side or on server side as well? So UI policy, as the name suggests, they run on the client side. like client scripts and UI policy, they both run on the client side. Server side components are different. There's a policy called data policy that's different from UI policy. We'll cover them later. But data policies are the components which are kind of equivalent to UI policies, but they run on the server side. Somebody said client side, you're right. Wherein server on which form store the cache setting, and from where we can change the threshold or number of transaction, the cache. So cache, you can clear cache if you like. You can clear. It's not recommended. Sometimes ServiceNow clears cache on their own based on some upgrades or plugin installations they have done. You can manually go and clean cache on your own using a particular URL as an admin, and you can of course there are configuration for how long you want database cache to be there in the system, when do you want to refresh it, etc. So it's kind of advanced configuration, not recommended by ServiceNow. Still, you can go on the navigator and just type cache, cache, and you'll see some options there for you to perform that operation which you are talking about. Is it possible to achieve archiving using UI policies? No. UI policies are, as I said, just a way to control your user interface. The name suggests UI policies. What are the policies that apply to user interface, and that defines fields you want to show, hide, or make optional, mandatory, and read only. So no, data archiving is altogether different functionality. There's a separate plugin which you have to enable, and there's a separate area where you have to go and configure and define on what grounds, what are the rules for data archiving and what are the rules for purging. Okay, as I said, you can archive, that's one thing, put them in a different table, and you can still refer them. Purging means deleting them altogether. Systems, organizations data retention policy is generally defined for how long they want to retain data in the system online. So they have got different data retention policies. I guess this UI policy will work on all records created in relationship table because every record has a sys ID. So UI policies, as I said, runs on form when the form loads. So related lists, of course, they represent records, but when you open those records on their own form, and if you have UI policies for those forms, they will run. Will client scripts work on bulk upload and how to upload data in bulk now? No, client scripts don't run on bulk uploads. Bulk uploads are done through XMLs from Excel, and you don't have client scripts running there. You can still write scripts to run when your bulk load happens. ServiceNow has got a different mechanism for bulk load. It's called import sets and transform maps. So import sets let you import data in bulk from various formats ranging from Excel to CSV to JSON and ODBC connections and all that, FTPs. You can pull data from there, then run transform scripts and their transform maps, which tell system, okay, if Excel has got these, it kind of pulls the data in a staging table, and then you have got a mapping from a staging table to a target table, and then you map field to field, and you can write scripts to run there. That's an advanced, not advanced, but intermediate level of administration task. We'll cover them later on. And then a lot of people saying next section, next session, next session. Okay, no worries. Please include related list for employee table. We can see the department in the form. Okay, I'll cover that as well. I'll have something here to say, okay, for, yeah, of course. So when I log in and I open that form to submit my time, I should see my previous entries also as a related list on that form. Let's do that. We'll have it. And that's a good suggestion. Thank you very much for recommending that, Gaurav. All right, guys, with that, I will close the call for today's session. I hope was good, and it will be recorded. It's already is. I just have to put it there. And of course, enjoy your rest of your day. I'll see you on the next weekend. Thank you very much.